Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Podolin here. We're going to continue on with learning how to properly format quotations in dialogue. We learned a little bit earlier about how to do so when we have examples with the tagline before the quote and after the quote, and today we're going to expand a little bit more on that so we can learn about when the tagline is actually in the middle of a quote, which is a little bit more challenging, but you'll see it's not too much more difficult. So again, we're going to follow the same steps. We're going to first identify the tagline. Who's speaking? Is it Yasmin said or replied Juan? Okay. Then we're going to select the quoted words and surround them with quotation marks, just like before. Once we've done that, we're going to always capitalize the first word inside of that quotation mark when it is the first word of a sentence. Only when it's the first word of a sentence, okay? And then finally, we're going to learn how to punctuate properly, just like we did before. Now here you'll see a couple quick examples, just like we learned earlier. When the tagline is before the quote, this is how we punctuate. So when we have Emily said, that's our tagline, Emily said, comma, then the quotation, then the capital letter, let's go to the store, period, quotation. At the very end here, we always want to make sure, if it's the end of the sentence, we put a period inside of that quotation mark. When we have the tagline that's after the quote, we have quotation, always start with the quotation, capital I, need to get some new shoes, comma, quotation, replied Miles. Again, at the very end of the sentence, we include a period, and in this case, since the tagline is after the quotation, we put the comma inside of the quotation, just like we learned earlier. Some exceptions, of course, we talked about whenever we have a question mark or an exclamation, that takes the place of the comma. Okay? We do not put it at the end after the tagline. We want to put it inside because what kind are you going to buy is the question that Jasmine asked. Okay? Let's move on to the new material for today. And this is when we have quotations that are in the middle. We have tagline in the middle of a quotation. Okay? If we have a tagline in between two separate complete sentences, we need to make sure that we put a period after the tagline. So for example, we punctuate it similarly. Quotation, capital I, can't wait to get to the mall, comma, quotation, said Nija. Now, we put a period here because that is the end of our first complete sentence. However, she had more to say. She had an entire new quotation to add. She added a new sentence. Quotation, again, notice the capital since it's a new sentence. They have the best food court, period, and then end the quotation. Okay, does that make sense? If you have any questions, just stop me. Okay? Now, when the tagline splits one sentence into two separate parts, so here we'll have only one independent clause, this is when we need to punctuate just a little bit differently. Instead of using a period, we're going to use a comma. So let's try it. Quotation, I think, comma, quotation. That's the first part of what Precious added. And then again, we separate it with a comma here instead of a period because that's not the end of the sentence. She had more of that sentence to say. So comma, quotation. Notice this is not capitalized. It's lowercase since it's still part of one individual quotation. That we should get Italian food, period, quotation. Okay? So the difference here, in this example, we had one independent clause that she said, I can't wait to get to the mall. And then we have another independent clause, they have the best food court. Those are two separate sentences. They need to be separated with a period, start a new quotation, and capitalize that first letter. Here, it's only one independent clause. I think, Precious added, that we should get Italian food, period, and quotation. Okay? Now a reminder, is the punctuation at the end of a quoted section? If yes, the punctuation always goes inside of the quotation. Right here. I think. Okay, there's a punctuation. It's at the end of the quoted section. It needs to go inside of the quotation. Same thing at the end of the sentence. It is right at the end of a quoted section, so the punctuation stays inside of the quotation marks. Right here for the tagline, the punctuation is at the end or outside, okay, of a quotation mark. This is when we use that rule. The punctuation is not at the end of a quoted section, so the punctuation stays outside of the quotation marks. Hopefully that helps clarify how we use punctuation and quotations to help us better use dialogue and citations in our writing.